Hey, everybody. Welcome to The Thirsty Professional. This is a place where we grab a bevy. I got my coffee today. We ditch the BS and we get real about careers, passion, purpose. I'm your host, Beth Ann Campbell. I am a former corporate queen. I traded in my tiara. Well, not really. I still have it. Traded in my tiara for a pen and a microphone. And now I am living my best life. I am also, can't forget this, I never have it handy. I am also the author of Where the Hell is My Bacon? Award winning. All right, for those of you who are out there in the comments, if you're watching live, please let us know that you're here. I'm seeing already a few people joining in, probably because of my awesome special guest. Let us know that you're here, where you are hailing from, and if you are having a bevy, what are you drinking? I know Doris has a great drink today we're going to share with you. If you're watching the replay, give us a hashtag replay, and of course, make sure to let us know if you have any questions or feedback so we can address it on this live stream or a future episode. All right, today, the much anticipated, my very, very, very special guest on The Thirsty Professional is Doris Walsh. You may recognize Doris's name if you're checking in, because she does often come in to support, which I so appreciate. So she has been our audience participant many times. You might also know her, some of you, from the Founders Network. I've talked about the Founders Network before. I'll put a link in the comments after the show. It is such a great organization and so many awesome people. Half of my guests are coming from their events. Doris is one of my sister ex-corporate captives. She spent nearly 20 years navigating corporate environments, balancing the demands of her own family life, and now she helps high-achieving, career-driven parents who experience overwhelm and guilt, stress, empowering them to thrive both professionally and personally. She is also, and if you know her, I know you'll agree with me, she is also one of the most fun, energetic, dynamic people that I have ever met, and you're going to fall in love with her immediately if you don't already know her. So please welcome Doris Walsh. Doris, welcome to The Thirsty Professional.
I have a voice, I would sing, but I think I'd bust your ear. So I'll just say thank you. And it's lovely to be here. And as you're talking about a bevy, this is mine.
I was just going to ask you, what are you drinking? Champagne. I love it. That best bevy. You win. You win the best bevy.
But there is a backdrop to this. I have to have it. It's not medicinal or anything. It's just that my kids finish. my kids finish for Easter holidays. They get 3.5 weeks off, and they finish today. My daughter's already at home, so I'll be on this and stronger for the
next 3.5 weeks.
Yay, just to get into it, right? Otherwise, it's gonna not turn out very well. So yeah,
I love that. So I'm actually going to go. I got a couple of chatty things, but I'm going to go right to the comments because we've already got people. We have people checking in beforehand. This is how popular you are. Seamus Corey is joining us. Seamus, who's going to be on the show in a few weeks on the 18th. Oh, cannot wait. He says he's here and cannot wait. This is National Hat Wearing Day today. What? In the UK?
Mm-hmm.
Well, there you go. Well, I'm complying. Thanks for joining, Seamus. Awesome. I'm maybe when you join us, you can put on your hat. I was just telling Doris that I think I need to do a hat montage. In fact, I took a picture of her in this lovely hat that she's going to show you right now. Oh, love it so much.
It's quite good. What about this one?
She's got a whole plethora of hats. I like that one's very, kind almost, you almost look very like a Margaritaville. Yeah.
Oh, I went through, tried to go through a sophistication stage, right? Doris is sophisticated, and I don't really.
Well, that's the hat you need in the UK right there. That's your, or as in the States, we would say that's your Kentucky Derby hat. That's your queen.
Well, this is kind of what I wore to Ladies' Day on Royal Ascot.
Yeah.
Thing. Yeah, so I thought I'd try sophisticated, but it didn't really work. I don't do sophisticated.
I love it. I used to have one similar to that, but not quite as big. You have definitely topped it.
Pink, right? Are we going to go for pink?
Let's go for pink. I like the pink one. That's awesome.
The pink one.
All right. Well, happy National Hat Wearing Day. And Doris is here with her champagne in her hat celebrating. Willie Nickel is here with us. Hey, Willie. Willie was a guest a few weeks ago, and check out his replay. Awesome to see you here. And he says he didn't know that, Seamus. Now, where's Versus Bunnet. I know, Willie. Well, you know what? Pressure's on. Pressure's on. Maybe photo or it didn't happen. Seamus Corey, yes, yes, yes. David Medina, David, welcome. Yay. Stella is here. I'm right here, coffee and all. Awesome. Thank you all for joining. I love the audience participation. This is why. Oh, color coordinated hat and everything, says Stella. Yes, pink, says Seamus. Yes. I was telling Doris, I'm in blue today, and I had this thought that Doris was going to show up in pink. So it's looking a little bit more orange on my screen, but I did put a little scarf flower in my hat just in your honor, Doris. So
love it.
We were talking before we got on here about, I don't know if anybody else has this problem as an adult, but how hard it is to make friends as an adult. Like, I don't know how people do it. I've told the story of how I even created a group in my little town here because there were so many middle-aged. Oh, my sister's here. Yay. Sorry. Allison Landry is here with no hat. Allison is my sister, my little baby sister. So I was just telling, I've told people before how hard it is to make friends, and I had created a group, and all of these middle-aged women were like, yes, we need this group. I want to talk about, and then I got the group and got it going and scheduled a whole bunch of events and nobody ever showed up. Do you have that problem, Doris? Do you have a problem making friends as an adult? Do you find it to be difficult?
I find it difficult, especially now that, I'm a solopreneur, right? I think when you were in corporate, you kind of had enough of a social circle, but most of them tended to be around work. And since I've kind of stepped away from corporate, it's some of the friends are kind of through school because I've got 2 young kids, which is fine, but not all of them are my jam, right? So, there are,
yes.
They're nice, right? And they're lovely, people, but just different backgrounds, different, likes and dislikes and all that kind of stuff. So it's kind of, I wouldn't call them really friends, as in there's probably 1 or 2 that if I needed really help, I would call and say, hey, could you help me with something?
Yeah.
Bobbling all around. So yeah, it is quite difficult. But what I find really interesting, actually, the people I kind of now call my friends are the friends I make online, right? Through either working events.
Isn't that weird?
It is. And I speak to people, and quite a few of them actually on the call now, right? So it's kind of like, because you see them regularly on every week or something like that, we know so much about them. Although I've never spent, entire time in a room with them, or I've not actually gone for real coffee with them or anything.
Yeah.
But they're my friends, right? And I call you one of them. Seamus another one. Willie's another one. It's kind of like this. It's this ease. You just show up, and whenever you are, and it's as if you've known each other for 20 some years. And I've never really had that in a real personal experience in person. But online, that's the beauty of, I guess, for being online. But it's not everyone, right? It's not everyone.
Yeah.
But I think it's that mirror effect, But what you give out is what you're going to receive in return, right? And it's just beautiful. It's just, I sit there. So I was saying to Seamus yesterday, we were on the Founders Network, and I just happened to be on a call with him one-to-one. And we just kind of like, next time I'm driving up to Scotland, I'm just going to go stop by Manchester, come in for a hug and a coffee, and then I'll see you later, right? But we could do that in a small country. But yeah, we should do that.
I love that. So yeah, and I feel the same. I've got so many people. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, let's take the Thirsty Professional on tour.
Ooh.
Anyway, I'll plant that.
Wow, I'll have to ponder that one. I was telling you earlier that I have a dream to go and do a whirlwind tour just to meet all of the people in Europe, UK, Portugal, who I have, like you said, I've never met in person, but I feel just almost as close to as even like my sister who's showing up here. And probably for me, that's part of why it's hard, because you said earlier that, that people aren't your jam. And I have an awesome family. My sister Allison is one of the most amazing people in the world. And we just, we don't see each other for 6 months. We get together and it's just, you get right back. And that's how it is with people like you. And so you do get a little bit more discerning, but I love that we can be friends. And here's Heidi Medina joining us, another person who I started off with hanging out with on LinkedIn and became good friends with, and we've never met in person. So it's pretty cool.
I'm just going to invite you in. I've got a standing dinner invitation at the Medinas. They didn't offer it to me. I offered myself up to them. So next time we're all in Portugal will just
I think
rock.
we all do. I think we've all said, we are going to have a retreat. What is Heidi? What do you call it? A retreat? We have to have a retreat. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll do that. You do that.
Hmm.
That'll be awesome. Let's do that.
Awesome. So much. I'm telling you, I was telling Doris, I think we may never get to the topic because there's so many things we talked about, but I'm going to go to the topic
Okay.
because I want to talk a little bit about your journey, because that's one of the most, what you do is amazing, but this show is about the journey and about how you got here. So not to quote, although I'm going to quote Julie Andrews from Sound of Music. Let's start at the very beginning. So we're going to start very early. You were born. You are a Dutch citizen, right? You were born in the Netherlands
Yes.
to Chinese ancestry parents. Now you live in the UK. You were educated in Scotland. But let's talk about that early child, because I think you and I have talked about how that shaped you kind of today. What was that like growing up in the Netherlands with Chinese parents?
Some of it was challenging, some of it wasn't. So my parents are very conservative Chinese, very strict, and neither of them are really educated. All they knew was just hard work. So, and actually, while I was born in the Netherlands, when I was very young, I got sent back to Hong Kong to live with my paternal grandparents for a few years. And that was great fun. I still have some really great, amazing memories from there. And but then when I came back to the Netherlands to start school, when I was about 4.5, 5 or something like that, I didn't know my mom, right? Because I'd been away for 2 to 3 years,
Yeah.
right? And I still have this.
That's got to be scary.
I remembered this, this image that still stays with me. Is I was hiding behind my grandma, and there was a lady on literally, hunkering down, with her arms open, say, "Hey, come on, say hello to mommy." And I was hiding behind my grandma and thinking, "Who the hell is this lady?"
Oh,
right?
wow.
She's not been part of my life for that period of time.
Yeah.
Then, we started school, and that was all good. And in the Netherlands, such a small country, they're all very open. The Dutch are very open people, right? And I never experienced any. I never really felt that I was different while I was in the Netherlands, because they were just so open people. What was the difference was that there was this outside world. So, and the boundary was our house, right? As soon as we stepped into the house, I had to turn into the whole, I'm a Chinese girl. But as soon as I stepped outside, I had to be Dutch, right? So actually, what I say, it's like inside the short ass 5 foot Chinese exterior is actually a 6 foot tall, gorgeous
blonde.
But I kind of had to kind of just meld in, and
you kind of had these two different personas of which one was the hardest for you?
Oh, the Chinese one for sure.
Yeah.
Right? My parents had so many expectations, and they put all the effort in kind of educating the kids because they saw that as the way out, right? They were very hardworking, owned their own Chinese restaurants and takeaways and whatever else, right? And that was hard work. That was 7 days a week, sometimes 16 to 18-hour days, and they wanted better for their kids. And I'm one of the 4. And so it was great. I learned a lot of responsibility from a young age. And then when we were 12, it kind of shows you, if it's genetic at all, my mom upended our whole entire family overnight. She had planned to move the whole entire family to Glasgow, where she had an older brother and a younger sister, without my dad even knowing. We didn't even know what was going on, right? And then literally the day before, she handed my dad it was in end of November, handed my dad a ticket and said, "By the way, we're getting on a plane tomorrow and we're going to go to Glasgow." My dad had no idea.
And is he coming with her, or it's just so she just surprise, honey?
Yeah, all done. Everything was sold. Everything was done, and we were gone. Literally within a week, we were like, "Oh my God, what was happening?" And we went. And shows you how strong a character my mother is, because she always had a vision that she was going to end up in England, right? She came from, when it was still the British ruled, right, Hong Kong.
Yeah,
she always wanted to be in the UK. So she married a Chinese guy who was Chinese but lived in lived in the Netherlands, and he said, "Yeah, the Netherlands is always going to be closer to England than Hong Kong was going to be. Okay, let's go." Never met the guy.
wow.
50 years. Yeah, 50 some years. So yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. But so we then moved to Glasgow, where I then went to school. And I was really excited. I was like, oh, because in the Netherlands you start learning languages quite early, and English was one of them. And I was like, oh, excellent! I get to practice my English. Landed in Glasgow, and I turned around to my mum. I was like, Mum, I think we got on the wrong plane because no one here.
Well, I know we have at least one Scottish person on the line who can. Yeah, there's always. Yeah.
So yeah, and then my mom said, no, we are landed because look over there. There's your Uncle Jack. And I had this feeling of, how am I going to cope here? But anyway, that's cool. But that was the first time in my entire life that I experienced racism.
Oh.
So I was the only Chinese girl in this school in Glasgow. And it was tough because one, I didn't really understand the language first, right? But I knew just by the tone that people were, how they were speaking to me, how they were looking at me, that it wasn't obviously flattering, right? So yeah.
And you never experienced that in Netherlands?
No, I didn't. I'd never experienced that in the Netherlands. So, and then it was kind of like, what do I do? And I couldn't do anything. I couldn't say anything to them because I didn't know the language. Oh, that came quickly, kind of 3 months in, that was fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, I remember walking home every time, for the first few weeks, I would walk home to where we were living with my aunt, and tears would be streaming down my face. But as soon as I got to the front door, they would miraculously disappear because I didn't want to worry my parents, right? So
was there a pressure there to kind of be,
to
be a little tough and just, deal with it? And
yes, it was. But also out of the four of us, I was the more mature one. My mom's always said that I was born with a mature head on my shoulders. So I was always the one.
I hope she's watching you now with your lovely pink hat.
She's actually chilled, like she's got over. But yeah, and then all that went, and then went through university, then worked, and then
Well, yeah, I want to talk about your corporate, because you were my sister corporate girl. So you were in corporate for 20 years.
Yes.
I think your website says you had 10 roles. So what did you do in corporate?
Yeah, so I worked for I worked in the oil and gas sector. So, and the company I worked for, they kind of, you jumped roles, right? I was never, my background, I was a marketer, I guess business and marketing, but I never did a marketing role really. I've done some finance.
Yes, I was an IT person that never really did IT. I did project management.
And what they kind of said is that every X number of years you will move, to move you on, you have to get different exposure to different parts of the business. So I had some amazing roles. Two of them actually my favorites were, I'm not a chemical engineer, and I went into two roles that were typically chemical engineers would do. And I sat there, I was like, there's a reason why I didn't do chemistry or physics, because I suck. Okay. But I had some amazing bosses who kind of helped me understand it in my speak, The first one was, I love this guy. I still call him out, he's my Yoda, he's my oracle, right? Anytime I had any problems, I would sit him down, and he would love sharing his knowledge, right? But that could take form of a lecture, and then, I'm like, right, hold on a second. Can you just give me the 2-minute version, right? So I can solve.
Yeah. Okay. You're young and you're full of, you want to just, I think it's great about what I love about is because I have been such a corporate ranter, because I did experience a lot of toxic leadership and overwhelm and a lot of the things that people get out of corporate for. But I had for the most part, great bosses that I reported to. And there is no place better than a corporate job where they will throw you into anything. If you're willing and you show a little initiative and you're interested, sure, go over here and learn this, go over here and learn that. And it is a really good way to learn different things and figure out, what do you love?
Yeah. So I never knew. So I always through my corporate career, I was like, oh, I'll do this. And I always had fun, no matter what it is that got thrown at me. But I think, what so happens that, I met my husband at work as well, right? And, the company wasn't just very good at managing a married couple's careers, right? It could manage one, but it couldn't marry both at the same time. And as, I'm female, obviously, and, I was the only one who could squish out kids, right? I took some time out, right?
Is that a technical term, squishing out kids?
I don't know. I'll use it. Because literally that's kind of what it is, or cut out, right? And the first one was cut out the sunroof, and the second one got squished out. And then and every time I had a child, 10 months out, I mean, they kind of, and Alex moved different places. So I moved with him and all that kind of stuff. So, and it was fun. It was fun. But therefore, my kind of career never went where I kind of had expected to. But then they also didn't know how to take me. Because you look at me without the cowboy hat, right? And she looks like a kind of a Chinese person. She's quite smiley, and the whole stereotype about about Chinese and being quiet, and they just keep saying yes and yes, and they work 1,000%, and it's all true. But then I open my mouth, and they're like, "Oh, she doesn't sound like a Chinese person, and she's got a Glaswegian accent." I'm like, "Oh my god, I'm confused." And then on top of that, she's got opinions, and I'm like. And it was kind of like, I don't know how to deal with her, And I guess I wasn't very clear then about what it is. So I was like, well, I'll take it, because, you had a fantastic paycheck. Benefit. I'll do it. But I think over time, I kind of got less and less enamored with it. And
what changed? What changed that after 20 years, made you just...
Yeah. Well, one of it was I was already a little, not as ecstatic. I'm the ecstatic type of person, right? Happy is fine, but I just like to be excited, right? That's kind of me. And I wasn't feeling that excitement. I was still very happy, but I wasn't feeling that excitement anymore. And I think it was kind of kids came, both of us in oil sector. And I was like, oh, what's going on with the planet? What am I? What's my role in making the world the best for my kids?
Yeah.
My husband just kind of looked at me. He's like, yeah.
It's also volatile. Oil and gas it's very risk averse. So there's always a risk. I know I spent 17 years in utilities, so oil and gas and electric. So yeah, it's risky.
So and then the pandemic hit, and then the company.
Every conversation I have, somebody says, and then COVID happened, and that was. I mean, really, somebody probably has done a show about everybody who your life changed and how it pivoted with COVID, good or bad.
Yeah, good or bad, right? And for me, it was that kind of stepping stone to, okay, I can leave, right? And I did. And then I was like, okay, what next? And I was like, I don't know. I don't know who I am without this corporate hat on, right? And I wasn't pretty as this pink, right?
So it's hard when you've been defined for so many years, the good, bad, or ugly. I know because I have 23 years. You get defined by, and you have success, right? And it's not all great, and God knows I've talked about it, but you do get defined by it, and it is hard. The hardest part for me was the money, like defining myself by, because I'm sure oil and gas is the same way. It's good money in corporate, right? And then you find yourself not in corporate, and now you have all these beliefs and these habits based on, well, if I worked harder, I got more money and I got promoted and I was making, I didn't have to think about what I bought and everything was great. And then all of a sudden you don't have that. And you have to kind of explore what is better than that? Happiness, joy, that kind of thing.
Yeah, there was all of that. But, I had to get over the guilt first, right? Because
guilt
of leaving corporate, although it's kind of, a little bit shoved, part of me was like, well, I wouldn't have been in this position if I just worked harder, right? Or if I just done more, or if I was, kept my mouth shut, in these type of meetings, all these things that I got pulled up for because, oh, Doris, we don't use, bright pink in presentations, or, that quirky dots are aligned, and font is not the corporate font or whatever. I couldn't bring my own to it, right?
So true. Oh my God. Yes.
And the times I've had to say, it's like, is that what you're actually judging me on, right? Whether this presentation, fits the words or whatever, or is it actually the content?
Did you feel that you were being treated differently? Because I know you said that you were still happy and stuff. I know so many people, especially women, but not just women. I think men, it happens a little older, but you get to a certain age and you start feeling like, when you're young and you're that even if it's surprising, people accept that. The woman who is outspoken because you're young and you're fresh and you're pretty and oh yes, and she's a go-getter, love it. But then you reach a certain age and maybe you just start taking some autonomy for yourself, or you're just the same person that you were, and it is a different treatment.
Yeah, I think it's a amalgamation of both, and then there is that kind of probably a little bit internal realization that I don't have to take this shit. I don't have to take this. You know,
Isn't it
it's kind
glorious?
of how,
People talk about women getting older and menopause, but one of the most amazing thing is that you give every day, you just give less and less fucks. You just don't.
totally. And I think it's that also. I think that kind of, where I guess I never really set any boundaries. I was the, yay, Doris will do that. Doris has a huge amount of energy. Let her have it. And actually, for all the shit stuff, I put my hand up.
Oh,
Yay,
yeah, the problems.
yes, and
Doris will do it.
yeah, and not only that, it was the stupid stuff like, oh, who will be the floor sweeper when there's a fire alarm, or who is going to organize this meeting? Oh, Doris will do it, and who's going to sit on the safety committee? Or Doris will do it, and you kind of like, why? And then I was like, no, I'm not going to do it, because you can give me the corporate BS, but actually, I know all this extracurricular stuff that I'm doing isn't going to add to the next promotion or whatever else, because you're going to spout other corporate BS that says, oh, well, this we did forced ranking
Yeah.
company. Oh yeah, but it's a very, very, competitive rank grouping. And I'm sitting there like, yeah, okay, that's not my problem, right? You told me at the start of the year, we sit there and we say, this is what we want you to deliver, and I agreed to it, and I delivered all of this plus an extra 25%, right? And I increased the bottom line, and an increase all of this.
But you're bossy, but you're mouthy, but
Yeah.
how much do you feel though, as a person who was in court, who probably raised their hand as I did many, many times, do you ever contemplate how much that you created your own monster? Because I do. I know that I had a big part because I was the responsive person. I was the person that said, "Yeah, give me the shit assignment." Absolutely. 5 people quit on this project. I'll take over. No problem. And I did, and I would be successful. But I also know that I had a part in creating that expectation then. So I had to acknowledge probably after I left corporate
Same.
that
It was the same. I think because I didn't learn to say no. I didn't know how to say no at that point, because I spent all this time saying yes. Right? No, just never wasn't a word in my lexicon, apart from when it came to my kids. Everything then was no. Right? So I had to no problems personally, but at work I couldn't say no. I didn't know how to, because I was kind of never taught, and I kind of drank the Kool-Aid that says, if you say no, well, that's going to impact your career, right? Even though they gave me a job that I really didn't think I would really enjoy, it's a little whispers that
they'll
go,
just give it to someone else if you say
the
no.
next promotion that you want or whatever else, right? And I
Yeah.
believed it, because I'd been in the one company, right, for that long, and you saw it happening to other
Well,
people.
and sometimes it was true. Sometimes you did. I mean, especially look at what's happening in today's world with people in every job, really, but certainly unprecedented in some areas in your quote white collar, your professional jobs, where people aren't their heads down. They are not. They don't even go out and like somebody's post that might be a little controversial because they don't want their company to see them, because there is real risk
Yeah.
for them.
Yes, it is. And you know what? And the thing is that I think the beauty of all of that is that, all of these things that you've gone through in your corporate life, and, even just personal life, it's kind of like, as you were going through it, there was resentment, and there was guilt, and there was shame, and there was all the negative emotions, right?
Yes.
At the end of it, I look at it now and they're all just gifts, really.
Yes.
They're all, but why couldn't I see them then? If
Right.
I'd seen them then, I would have maybe done something different. But then I'm like, well, maybe this was just the way it's meant to
Well,
be.
part of it probably is because you were under a lot of stress, just like the people that you're helping today. But Jyotsna Hoffman, my guest last week, made a great statement. She said, the greatest journey that you'll ever have is that of self-discovery. And I know for me, I didn't even recognize it at the time, what was going on. I recognized some things, but not the extent that of what was really happening. I had to get out of it before I had it maybe enough brain space to realize it and recognize.
And for me, part of also is that I didn't have that many role models in the company I was working for who looked like me, who was senior up.
Yeah.
And the women who were senior kind of had to do it the man way, if that makes sense. They had to act in the way as if they were men, right? And I was like, but I'm not a man. Neither do I
Right.
want to turn into a man. I just want to be me. So why do I? And towards the end of my career, I was kind of like, but why do I keep on putting things on that don't really fit me, right?
Yeah.
but it wasn't until I left that I could do that self-discovery, because you know what it's like, right? Once you start running the hamster wheel in corporate, it keeps on going, right?
Yeah.
Even when you're on a vacation or a holiday, it keeps on going,
Oh yeah.
right?
Oh yeah.
And it wasn't until I actually had that time out, really time out, I wasn't working, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, okay, you're like,
It's a shocker when you have that open space. I want to jump into the comments real quick because we got tons of comments coming in here. Okay, Renee Springer is joining us. Thank you, Renee. It's hard to make friends as adults. Yes, that is a true statement, and Seamus agrees. Seamus says, "You are an amazing friend, Doris. So supportive, caring, and loving. Isn't she, though?" I did put a post out yesterday because I was thinking of Doris when one of my neighbors, I was walking my dog, and one of my neighbors came out, and we passed, and she has a couple dogs, and I have a Labrador, and she loves everybody, and she made a comment about how she appreciates my dog's friendly disposition. And I thought of Doris because, not that Doris is a dog, but Doris is one of those people that you always feel like she's so happy to see you and so fun and energetic, and you got shit going on in your life, but you just always seem very inviting and open, and I think that's what we all love about you. Oh goodness. Let's see. What else do we have here? Heidi Medina. Oh my God, late to the party. The hats. Yes, thank you. Heidi, I don't know if you caught it, but I'm gonna do a hat montage because Doris has many. Yeah, I told her we're gonna just switch you out halfway down. Seamus says yes on the Thirsty Professional on tour. Seamus's door is always open, and Heidi agrees that we all both have a standing offer to visit Portugal. David agrees on that. Heidi says she's planning a collective retreat in the future, so Dora's a member of the collective. So yeah, that's awesome. Renee says, when you're a kid, you're at school every day, so you see your friends every day. Then you leave the school environment, you enter a work environment. You may make friends with your coworkers, or you may not. This is very true. My in-person friends, a lot of them are coworkers. And when you start working from home, you don't have, so this, like you said earlier, Doris, you get the network friends then, which are awesome. Seamus wants to be booked in with Heidi on her retreat. Lion Flood joining us. Lion, a guest a couple months ago on the show. Check that one out. Okay, these two in a room together must be why there's so much electricity in the room. Truth. Stella says, I agree with you, Doris. It's a new way of getting close to people, never done before in history. I think she's talking about networking. And Seamus says, Lion, with you, bro, so much energy. Truth. This is like such an energetic crowd. I love it. This is what I love about lives. This is why I prefer them to podcasts, because recording with nobody here to kind of give this energy is awesome. Stella says, Sweden's waiting for you, Beth Ann. I think I'm telling you, I'm gonna do a tour. Willie's laughing out loud at you, Doris. I'm sure it was probably one of many things that you said, but probably your reference to Scotland. And Heidi agrees the accents can be heavy for sure. Let's see. Founders Network rocks from Seamus. Yes, so many of us are members of the Founders Network, and I agree. It is awesome. Lion calls us Cowgirl Pink Hat Crew, or maybe you Cowgirl Pink Hat Crew. But now what is she? I think you're more, what did I call you? Like Key West, Margaritaville or something. I don't know. Or maybe Safari. I don't know. You got a couple of looks.
We need to have there. Bring his lion in to make it look safari.
Well, Lion could probably do that for you. Seamus says the damn pandemic. Yep. Stella says, laughing, she's got opinions. Oh yeah, she did and does. Seamus is laughing at giving less and less fucks. And Willie says, when your fucks fuck off equals freedom. Yes. Let's put that on a t-shirt.
Yes, put a t-shirt. Make a LinkedIn post about that, Willie.
Allison, my awesome little sister, says the hardest part is learning to say no to all the extra stuff. I know. And the thing is, and Seamus agrees, this is what I mentioned earlier. It's hard. There was a time when I loved doing that. And probably for you too, Doris, that maybe when you were first starting out, you were eager, you wanted to try new things. Somebody wants to put you on something. Hey, great, put me in. But then, you get 15, 20 years in, and suddenly it does become an expectation, and it becomes kind of burdensome. Stella says 100% COVID. It's a collective trauma we've not recovered from, but astrologers knew it was the start of the process we're in right now. Complete overhauls of what we used to know. Every time I told somebody this yesterday, I was on a call and they were talking through their journey, and they said once again, and then COVID happened. So COVID was the grand pivot, says Seamus. And Heidi says, Seamus, we'd love to have you in the collective with us all. Of course we would. All right. Lion says, okay, that hat is cool. Your current hat tilted to the side in your pimp voice. So I agree. Awesome. Pimp voice or not. Okay, so I want to get back to talking a little bit about your journey and what you're doing. So right now, Doris, you help high achieving parents transform their guilt and their stress. When you're working with parents who you've been there, right? You've been a parent who has been a working parent and has had all of the struggles. What are some of the things that parents feel guilty about, and is it different between men and women?
So guilt comes from typically about, not feeling as if you're not giving your all at work or at home, and feeling as if you've got to trade one off against the other, right? That's how I felt. Did my husband feel the same? No, he didn't. He, whether that was a more pragmatic view on it or whatever else, maybe emotions has got something to do it, but my kids are now 12 and 10 and a half. So, and when I look at friends now who are younger and they just had their first child and who's 2 or something like that, I see a difference, right? So over that kind of 10, 15 years, things have also shifted. I think parents nowadays, probably men and women, want to have a more proactive. It's not just, I'll just give it to the wife. And I guess traditionally, it makes it sometimes a bit sense, especially if the husband is earning more, right, than the wife, then makes sense for maybe one parent to kind of, sacrifice is not the right word, but I'm going to go with it anyway, sacrifice their career, right, to be able to be there for the kids. I think nowadays there is a bit more...
It's a choice. It's a choice that people make, regardless of, sometimes it's just, my sister's on the phone call, and when her kids were very little, her husband for many years was a stay-at-home dad, and it just made sense because she had a good job and she had, the stability, and she did a little bit of traveling for her work. So yeah.
And then I think so there is some difference, but I think what I guess helped me was that my husband is a very empathetic human being. So, and there was never any angst or fights between us about, if I needed to travel, it's like, fine, you got to go and do whatever it is that you need to do for your job, and I will do the childcare. Or, but most of the time it was me, because the way things worked and whatever else, he had an operations job, so couldn't run away with us. I didn't have an operations job. It was just easier from a logistics perspective to handle that. But I, like you, like your sister, I've known people who had stay-at-home dads, right? Which is awesome, right? And the thing is that
it's more and more common.
Yes,
I actually know a lot of people who have had periods where that's just worked out, and that's great. That's how it should be. It really shouldn't be a expectation just because you're the mom. It should be a conversation, and how are we going to manage this situation that makes best sense for all of us.
Yeah, and I think what on reflection about why there was guilt was because I hadn't really thought through what having a child or children meant. My expectation was that I'm on a career trajectory. After popping 2 out, I'm going to be on the same career trajectory, right? I went back to work, between popping out a child, right? But it's kind of like, but I was like, but why am I so freaking exhausted? And whenever there was something, and it always happens, I don't know how the kids sense it. They've got the spidey sense, right? Anytime there's something important, that's when they get sick.
All right. How many parents out there can relate to that?
Yeah, and when mommy is wearing, going off to see a customer or whatever else, and no kind
that's
of
time to
that is when they give you a racing white stripe over the chest, right? And you're sitting there like, Oh, right. I mean, it's kind of, and then you can't go because the child now has, a fever, and, they don't take them in nursery when they've got fevers, right? And you're sitting there like, you had to have had, this has been booked in my diary for like months.
Yeah.
And now I can't rock up. And then I feel guilty because I was supposed to go and do something. And I had expectations that this was how I was going to run this meeting or whatever else and what we were going to do. And now I've got to, because we don't really have family close by, right, to help out. Or it's kind of like call to husband and say, could you just come home for a few hours, right?
Right.
While I go off and do my meeting or whatever else. But in the meantime, I've got to change again, right? I've now got to wash myself again and get changed. And, and then you're all stressed because you're hot and you're now going to be running late and there's traffic and everything happens, right? But, and it's kind of like, whenever, shit happens, there's just more turds on the way, right, to get you there. You're like,
oh, another mug. I'm gonna also do a montage of my great guests t-shirt and mug. When shit happens, there's always another turd on the way.
Isn't it? Yeah, that's it. So yeah, and I think it was just my own expectations, right, by how I, because, and the most difficult thing for me was that settling into parenthood. It was my life in corporate. It's all about spreadsheets, right? I was a queen of spreadsheets. I could make spreadsheets, literally make my coffee if I really wanted to,
It
right?
still is, Doris. I still use spreadsheets every single day.
Yeah, same here. But I couldn't fit my children into a spreadsheet. You know what I mean? It's like, how do I make this thing, child, work? It doesn't work. Why doesn't it work the way I want it to work? So yeah, it was just that, and the thing is that, because I had such a lot of fun at work, right? I'm always made it fun. And I really enjoyed it because it gave me the mental stimulation. And I felt as if I was making a difference. Okay, even if it's not in the environment with the people I worked with, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of like, but I want to do all this, but I've got to look after you too. But I never kind of looked at it as like, now I look at it as I had 2 full-time jobs, right? I had 2 full-time, and I just never gave myself that kind of grace, that kind of, look, it's okay, because I in my head was like, no, I gotta go back, I gotta go and get that next pay increase or whatever else, right? And that brought stress and resentment, right? The kids, and I'll put my hand up, right? I'll sit there. It's like, my kids, I love them to death, but they're horrible, and they're anchors around my ankles, right? And life is so much more fulfilling with them in it. But my God, it's kind of.
Did you feel guilty about enjoying work so much when you had your kids? Yeah,
I did. Especially when I most of the parents, most women now in the UK, when they have a baby, they typically take a year out, right? With my first one, I took 10 months out. With the first one, I was like 7 months in. I sat there. I was like, my brain is dying. Please, can I come to work? Please, can I go back to work? Because this is not fun, right? Pooping, burping, changing nappies. I'm sure I'm meant for more than this, right? I find it really quite challenging when they were babies.
Yeah, sure.
And but when a second one came along, 5 months in, I was like, get me the hell out of here. I mean, I just can't do this anymore. But I felt as if I had to do the 10 months, right? Because my first one,
sure.
and one has to have.
Well, yeah. So there's the guilt and like, am I guilty because I want to go back to work? I mean, you can't win. You just honestly, especially as a woman.
Yeah, and I think I was only in the group of mummies that I was with. The rest of the mummies just were quite happy to be staying home and all that kind of stuff.
That's great. That's
great for them. But when I said, "Oh yeah, but this is just freaking boring, isn't it?" They would look at me. I was like, "What? You can't say it." I was like, "Yeah, but it is though." And then I felt, "Oh my God, maybe I'm an awful mother. Maybe I am, right?"
And you feel guilty because you're an awful mother.
Yeah, and I was like, I can't win anyway, either way. And so I sit there. I was like, okay, maybe I'll just shut up. I can't help but to speak about it, right? There, and then it's kind of like the first time when I said, when we were all together, I was like, yeah, people talk about, oh yeah, when a baby came out, it was just love, and it was like, that's not what I felt.
Is there something wrong with me because I didn't? Yeah, because it was different. What is it? Is it different now? Is your guilt? You're still a parent, but your kids are now 10 and a half and 12. Is the guilt still there, and is it different?
Oh, it's different. It's different because the last kind of 3 years has been this massive personal development journey, and that I know is going to continue until the day I leave this planet. And the guilt is, the only guilt I have is if I don't meet, if I don't live to my values or live how I want to be, right? So it is, I guess the guilt is in some ways more meaningful, whereas I used to kind of feel guilt and shame about things that I actually couldn't control. Whereas now I am much more aware, and actually guilt has mostly left, is only when,
It's
times
almost like an alert, right? It's almost like it's something that says, "Oh, okay, I'm feeling guilty. Let's
yeah,
explore that."
yeah,
Versus
yeah,
I feel like shit about myself because I can't do this or I'm not doing this the way someone says I'm supposed to do it.
yeah. And I think because of, having kind of shed, I kind of call it shedding, shedding all the beliefs, that I just kind of took on, and I thought that this is what a Chinese mom needs to be, right? But I'm a Chinese mom with a white English husband and, mixed race kids, and I want to have a career and whatever else. I think part of that now that I've left corporate and been able to give myself that kind of space to think about it, it is very different. And it is just, I know what truly matters to me now, what makes me truly happy,
Has
right?
it changed your relationship with your parents?
Yes, yes, it didn't for a long time. But what's happened is that, and that's only been this kind of last year, my mom is the most beautiful lady, but my God, can she get me? She can literally, it's
Everybody.
like dynamite, I mean, she can get me from very calm to explosion in literally a second, right?
Listen, there is something about the nature of mothers, and I said this about my own late mother, and my sister can concur. I loved her. She was an amazing, beautiful, social, loving woman, but sometimes I couldn't stand to be in the same room with her for no other reason than it's a mother-daughter dynamic. And you on top of it had, your strict the upbringing was, different, so
Yeah. So yeah,
most daughters out there, those people who say I'm best friends with my mom, I don't get that. I mean, great for you, but I don't I don't
yeah,
get it.
yeah. I don't think I've got that kind of relationship with my mom either. But I think what I've come to, and maybe it's an age thing, maybe it's a personal development thing. It's kind of like I kind of, it's not my job to convince her. It's not my job to own her feelings. I'm not responsible for
Mhm.
her feelings. It's kind of, I've kind of taken on my own coaching tools, right? And said, I'm not responsible for my mom's feelings, right? It is okay for her to have her viewpoints. And if that makes her happy, then that's what makes her happy. And actually what's happened is that we have a much calmer relationship. Alex used to say to us, whenever you talk to your mom, it's kind of like shotgun. It's kind of like this machine guns goes off, right? Because Cantonese isn't a beautiful language anyway, right? And then we get engaged, right? And then, the noise level goes up, and it's kind of like you're in the middle of a war zone, right? That's what it sounds like, Doris, right? But now, like you said, I couldn't sometimes stand in my room with my mom for 5 minutes. Now I can have a 45-minute conversation on the phone with my mom without
Yeah.
me literally slamming the phone down on her, right? And now it's quite, when we were kids, like based on your post yesterday or the day before, we had proper phones that we could slam down, right? Now
Right.
slamming down a phone, it's not quite the
It's
same.
not the same. We've lost something with the mobiles.
Yeah, but yeah, no, it's definitely changed. But
Well, let me ask you this about I'm going to reverse that too. So since you've now been coaching parents, has the way that you look at your kids and how you raise your kids, has that changed at all?
yeah, yeah, definitely. I was growing my kids the way kind of how I was brought up, kind of strict, really strict. And since I got into coaching, I've kind of like taken away, because I was doing things the way I thought they were, just based on my experience and
Yeah.
and how I saw life. That this is how I needed to bring them up. And actually, what I've now done is a lot more hands off, allowing them to make their own mistakes and not be, because I was always like, oh, spelling test. Well, 12 words, you better get 12 out of 12, right? That's how I grew up, right? You know what I mean? 100% actually isn't enough, right? Aim for the 200s, right? Or thousands, right? That's where we're going. And I was kind of like that with my kids. But now that's kind of changed. It's kind of more like try your best, because it isn't, for me, I grew up with academics, academics, academics. That's your way out, right? My main focus for my kids is happiness, happiness and resilience. That's what I'm growing, right? The academics, if they're bright enough, they're going to get it, right? Because it doesn't really matter whether you get 100% or you get 80%, right? So I keep saying this to my kids now. It's like, I don't ever expect 100%. If you get 100%, awesome, right? But 100% to me means that you're either working way too hard, right? And you're sacrificing something else, right? Because you only have X number of hours in a day, or it is too easy, right?
It's very interesting. My parents were very, my biological father died very young, and my mother remarried, and they were both very chill. And so I love hearing about other people's experience with their parents. I also had the fortune of having a lot of brothers and sisters, and some of, like my brothers especially, they were typical boys of the 80s. They would get in trouble. So nobody really paid attention to Beth getting her straight A's over here, but internally, I was that voice, right? The hard voice of the self-failure of if I didn't get a 4.0 or whatever it was. So
Yeah.
it's really interesting. It's almost like I was my own parent in some ways.
Ah, that's amazing though, right? But yeah, and so now I sit there and I'm like, okay, my kind of job as a parent is to grow happy and resilient kids, kind of show them what a good decision looks like. And then, and I kind of allowing them to fail, right? Because they're going to face failure,
Yes.
right? So
So
why
important.
don't I grow them now to kind of get used to that kind of failing, right? So that it's not going to be a big surprise if they've the first time
Well,
they
it's such a problem these days. I have run into so many people, even in corporate, really young kids coming out of, in COVID again,
yeah,
damn COVID did not help the situation, but we have a lot of really young kids, not all, and I don't mean to say that it's everybody, but there are a lot of young people who have not been allowed to fail. They have not been allowed to be uncomfortable, and it's so important to do that because when they now then they get out into the, I mean, Mel Robbins talked about this in one of her speeches. They get out into the real world. They don't know what to do. There's nobody there to say, "It's okay, I got it for you. Things will be fine. Let me take care of it." And they do fail normally, like everybody does,
yeah,
and they don't know how to function.
yeah,
So good for you.
yeah. And that was a realization, through my own coaching and being coached. It was kind of like, I was trying too hard to fit my kids into the box that I wanted them to fit into. And actually, what the children were telling me really through, throwing tantrums or whatever else, they didn't want to be stuck in that box. So why the hell was I
Yeah.
forcing them into that box? Because I thought that was the best thing for them. But actually, they have their own little minds, right? So if I just be open, and because we never talked about feelings when I was young, right? And we're gonna have to have the chat, right? That sex chat, wherever that.
Yes. Yeah.
And I've already nominated Alex, right, to do that. That's still the
Yeah. That's very true. I never had one with my mom. It was literally like one question, did you guys have a movie? Or do you know what menstruation is or something like that? And I said, yes. I was like, okay, that was
okay.
it. And here's a book. Here's a book that to tell you about it. I feel like I paved the way for my younger sisters in that respect. So,
But it's kind of like that. We're much more open as a family to how
yeah.
I grew up, right? So yeah, and it's kind of like, look, kind of teach them the kind of real life stuff, because academics, and I keep saying to everyone who wants to listen, it's kind of kids nowadays, it's great that they need to learn, maths and English, right? For sure, right? But, can we actually teach them some life skills, teach them about
Right.
that, actually that, back when I started corporate wasn't really, the thing, we don't really care whether you're empathetic or not, right? I'd rather you shouted and have a club, right? And got what you wanted. Whereas now, corporate life has also changed as well, right?
Yeah.
And we talk about mental, physical, well-being and all that kind of stuff. That was never talked about when I was in corporate, right? So it is kind of like building them up so that they have that awareness, right? And allowing them to say, look, you can shape, right, and live life however you want it to live, providing it's legal, right? That's my
Yeah.
own.
Legal and ethical. And then after that, yeah,
You
go.
don't end up in prison. right? It is okay, right? So yeah, it's a learning process, you know. And
Yeah.
am I getting it right? I don't think so, right? But I'm trying my best, and that's all I can do.
That's awesome. We are almost at the hour. I'm going to go to the comments real quick here, but just to let everyone know there is a bit of a delay. If you have any final thoughts or comments, we're going to be wrapping up in a bit. So I just want to go through some of the comments here. Stella says no saying requires practice, especially if you're a woman. It's true. I think women are I don't know. I mean, probably you would agree, Doris, that I love it. And Doris is about to go off to her ascot, to her Kentucky Derby, whatever.
Total clash, though. Total clash. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
Or you're going to an event for the king.
Yeah.
So my sister Allison, awesome to have you here. She says I'm blessed to also have an empathetic husband who just knew where to jump in when I was feeling guilty for having to put too much into work. It truly takes a team slash village to balance the efforts and relieve the guilt. So
So
true.
true. So true.
Lion says, thank you for this energy filled conversation. I feel like it's no effort at all, but you're welcome. Willie's laughing at kids are ankle anchors. I'm telling you, when I go through this for clips, there's going to be a lot of t-shirt material in here. Oh, okay. Sella says the structures of corporate are based on the church and the military hierarchies. I believe that all based on male-centered society. Yep. Allison says mothers and daughters, so true. I think Allison would agree with me. Our mother was amazing, but sometimes it was just better to not, especially I was the oldest daughter too, so I didn't have I had a different relationship with her, but Heidi Medina says, yes, don't put your kids through that. My parents did, and I'm so stressed when I'm not doing perfect now because I'm a chronic overachiever. Yes, yes. And there's always another turd on the way. Heidi's laughing at that. Allison says, allowing them to fail, so needed these days. Yep, Allie has 3 kids and she knows so much. Yeah. So, all right, folks. Again, any final comments, throw them in there. Doris, before we wrap up, what would you like our listeners to know? Of course, I will put all this information in the comments at the end, but do you have anything coming up or what's the best way to contact you?
Best way to contact me is through LinkedIn. I'm quite active on LinkedIn, so find me there and tap me up for a chat. Always happy to have a chat, and look forward to any comments, anything else. And if you'd like, as I said, just have a chat. Please, I'm not scared.
And she's not scary at all. And you, every time you see Doris, once you get connected with her, she's going to be like your best friend meeting. And Doris, I barely touched upon my notes that I had. So once again, we're going to have another round later this year if you're up for it. So
no, totally. That was lovely. Thank you so much for having me. I had a blast.
Thank you so much for being my guest on the Thirsty Professional and with your wine and your awesome hats. One of the things that I do love so much about you is every time I see you, not only are you just open and inviting, but you're so authentic and you're honest and you're transparent and it's just so effortless for you. I love it. I love people like that. I love that you can talk about anything. And I do seriously, no joke. Whenever even if we have a quick 3-minute breakout room, which we did the other day. I think it was you and Lion and I were in a room. I make little notes of what you say because I'm thinking, oh my God, I got to follow up on that. Or maybe it prompts a post or something to ask you about. So you talk about a lot of things. You're open about most of those things and you have a great infectious personality. I so appreciate you joining me today.
Thank you. Pleasure.
Okay. So next week, folks, I am taking the week off. So yeah, I had a unavoidable reschedule from somebody and I just decided I'm going to take some time for myself. You had a little post out the other day. You should go check it out. And you had some 7 ways to work, go with the flow versus against the flow. And one of those was letting things go or taking time for yourself. And I don't do that often. So I decided I wasn't going to try to find a replacement. However, in 2 weeks, on April 11th, one of my new BFFs, my new network BFFs, Scott Smith, is going to be joining me. If you've ever, and Doris was like this too for me, when you meet somebody and you just know right away, as soon as you start talking, you just know that this is your people. That is Scott Smith. I think he found me on LinkedIn, or I found him. I don't even remember. I was recently on his podcast, The Outsourcing Blueprint, where we were talking about outsourcing. We were talking about my book, Where the Hell is My Bacon? And we got into corporate, and I was, for the first time in a long time, excited about talking about corporate with Scott. And it was a great conversation. He is founder and CEO of Akata Consulting. And like his title, he is an outsourcing expert. And I'm not even going to tell you anymore because it's going to sound like very corporate and technical, but trust me, he is not. He is just so easy to talk to. We are just going to roll with it. He is the bee's knees, and we're just going to, kind of like Doris, we're just going to go where we go. So mark your calendars for April 11th. This is another must-see episode, which, if I can toot my own horn, all of my episodes are must-see because I bring such great people like Doris and like Scott and all of my other guests. I'm very blessed to have all you in my life. So anyway, mark your calendars for that. If you are watching here on LinkedIn, please connect, if you're not already, both with myself and with Doris. If you're on YouTube, please like and subscribe. It really does help and much appreciated. If you have any additional comments or feedback, leave them in the comments, or you can DM us if you're able to do that, and we'll get to those. And then congratulate yourself for getting real about your career, your purpose, and your fulfillment. Now, Doris and her lovely hat, her Kentucky Derby hat, Miss Hattie Arbuckle, my hat, and I are going to bid you a fond farewell. Take it easy, everybody.